Okay, let's unpack this. Welcome, everyone, to the deep dive. And today, a really big thank you to Reading Cowboy for asking us to dive into a book that honestly has touched millions of lives. Eckhart Tolle's, well, massive work, The Power of Now, a guide to spiritual enlightenment.
It really is a landmark book.
Absolutely. Now, maybe you've seen the title around, maybe on a bookshelf, and you might have thought, oh, another self-help thing, or maybe something just for, monks on a mountaintop.
Right, it can seem that way from the cover.
But our goal today, our mission, is actually much more direct, much more, well, I'd say almost revolutionary for your actual daily life. This isn't really about just intellectually picking apart a text.
No, not at all.
It's about giving you a really actionable shortcut. We want to show you as clearly as we can what you can actually do, like right now, today, to shift your whole experience, quiet down that, that nonstop inner chatter.
That voice in the head.
Exactly, and tap into a really deep, lasting kind of peace, the kind that isn't just blown around by whatever's happening outside. So this deep dive, it's truly about practical steps, immediate things you can try for real, tangible change in how you feel and live.
Yeah, we're talking about getting more present, less inner conflict, and finding that deep peace that doesn't depend on circumstances changing or hitting some future goal.
Perfect. That's exactly it.
And what's really fascinating here, and kind of essential to getting the book's core message, is how it even came about. It comes directly from Tolle's own really intense personal journey, a time of just immense psychological suffering, almost unbearable.
Right. He talks about being suicidal, doesn't he?
He does. He reached this point where the thought, I cannot live with myself any longer, was just relentless, overwhelming. He was right on the edge. But then, in that absolute pit of despair, something really peculiar happened. A realization hit him.
What was that?
He heard the thought. He recognized it as a thought, a voice, and then it struck him. Am I one or two? If I cannot live with myself, there must be two of me, the I and the self that I cannot live with.
Wow. That's quite a thought.
It was utterly pivotal. This insight apparently just stopped his mind, the very source of all that agony, completely. He describes it like falling into this void, but a void totally free of fear, and it led to this state of just indescribable bliss.
He stayed like that for a while.
For nearly 2 years, he says, just existing in intense joy, often just sitting on park benches, just being.
Incredible. So how did the book emerge from that?
Well, it came from a very simple human place. People started coming up to him. They could sense this shift in him, this peace. And they'd say, I want what you have. Can you give to me? Show me how to get it.
And what did he say?
His answer is really the bedrock of the power of now. It was simple but profound. You have it already. You just can't feel it because your mind is making too much noise.
Ah, okay. So the noise is the problem.
Exactly. And the genius of the book and what we're diving into today really works on 2 levels. First, it helps you see what's false within you. The nature of human unconsciousness, dysfunction, how it causes conflict personally and globally. Seeing that false stuff as not you is critical.
Recognizing the illusion.
Precisely. But then, maybe even more importantly, the second level guides you on how to tap into this profound transformation of consciousness that's available right now. Not someday, but now. It's about freeing yourself from the mind's grip and learning how to sustain that present aware state in daily life.
So it's not just about understanding it intellectually.
No, definitely not. Tolle really emphasizes this feeling response, this sense of recognition from deep within. It's more like remembering something you forgot, activating what he calls living knowledge from inside every cell. Like your body knows how to heal a cut,
Yeah.
or a baby knows how to seek comfort. Tolle suggests we have that same deep inherent knowledge about peace and presence. It's wired in. This deep dive is about reactivating that, not just learning new facts.
That journey, wow, from such inner turmoil to that kind of peace, it's really something. And it sets the stage perfectly for understanding the core problem he tackles, which, let's be honest, hits incredibly close to home for most of us. The mind itself. And here's where it gets really interesting. Because according to Tolle, the biggest obstacle to enlightenment, to that peace we're talking about, isn't some external thing, it's our own mind.
Our identification with it specifically.
Right. He talks about the voice in your head. And I mean, if you're like most people, it's probably not just one voice, is it? It's more like multiple voices, this constant involuntary stream of thoughts, this monologue or dialogue that just runs.
All the time. Commentary, judgment, worry, planning.
Exactly. Replaying the past, rehearsing the future. And Tolle doesn't just see it as a quirk. He calls it an addiction, a deep-seated addiction.
Why an addiction, though? That sounds strong.
Well, because, he argues, we've been unconsciously conditioned to get our whole sense of self, our identity, from the content and the activity of that mental chatter. We literally believe that if we stopped thinking, if that voice went quiet, we'd cease to exist. Or at least cease to be us.
We think we are that voice.
Precisely. Which leads straight to what he calls the phantom self, or the ego. And, this isn't necessarily ego like being arrogant or full of yourself.
No, it's a technical term here.
Right. It's more like a false sense of self, this kind of illusory identity that's created simply by unconsciously identifying with all that mental activity. And this ego, this phantom, it can only stay alive. It can only maintain its illusion of being a separate me through constant compulsive thinking.
It needs the thoughts to survive.
Yeah, it's the self-perpetuating cycle that we, without realizing it, keep feeding with our attention, our belief, our very sense of identity.
And that ego, that mind-made self, it's completely preoccupied with the past and the future, isn't it? It's always looking away from the now.
How so?
Well, think about that inner narrative. One day when X happens, when I get the job, find the partner, lose the weight, whatever, then I'll be okay. Then I'll be happy. Then I'll finally be at peace.
Right. Always projecting happiness into the future.
Always. The present moment, for the ego, barely exists. It either gets filtered through the lens of past experiences, colored by old hurts or expectations, or it's just seen as a means to an end, a stepping stone to get to some future moment that promises fulfillment. This is what Tolle calls psychological time. It's totally different from clock time, which we need for practical things like scheduling.
Okay, so clock time is practical, psychological time is mental dwelling.
Exactly. It's when your mind is constantly stuck in what was or obsessing about what will be and completely missing what is right here, right now.
And this links to fear, you said.
Absolutely. This obsession with psychological time, this constant projection, is the root of so much fear. Tolle argues that ultimately all fear of loss, failure, not being good enough, being hurt, even just that background hum of anxiety.
Yeah.
At its deepest level, it's the ego's fear of death, of annihilation. Because the ego is just a construct, it knows unconsciously that it's not real, not permanent.
So any threat to its identity feels like death.
Precisely. Think about something seemingly small, like the compulsive need to be right in an argument. Why do people cling so fiercely to their opinions?
Because being wrong feels
Like dying to the ego.
Yeah.
If your sense of self is tied up in a mental position, then being proven wrong feels like a threat to your very existence. That's why disagreements can escalate so badly. It taps into that primal fear.
That makes a lot of sense, actually. It explains why people dig their heels in.
It does. The ego is always trying to strengthen itself, make itself feel more real, often through external things, possessions, status, achievements, or even just being right.
Okay, that's a really powerful, maybe even a bit uncomfortable insight. So if this mind identification, this ego, is driving fear and this constant search outside ourselves, how does Tolle link it specifically to emotional pain? Because pain feels very real.
It feels incredibly real. And Tolle draws a direct line. He says that emotional pain, things like resentment, anger, anxiety, guilt, sadness, self-pity, even boredom, all of it arises from identifying with the mind's patterns, its stories, its judgments, its interpretations of reality.
So the mind creates the pain through its interpretation.
Yes, and what's really key here is that any pleasure or high the mind generates always contains the C of its opposite, pain. Think about excitement, it fades, right? Or the thrill wears off, maybe leaves you feeling empty.
The inevitable crash.
Exactly. When you're chasing happiness as a mental concept, as something dependent on external conditions, you're essentially chasing something that's bound to flip into its opposite. But real love, real joy, real peace. Tolle says these are different. They arise from beyond the mind, from that deeper state of being.
And they don't have an opposite.
They don't have an opposite. They aren't dependent on circumstances. They just are when you connect with that deeper dimension.
Okay. And this accumulation of past pain leads to the pain body concept.
Yes, exactly. The pain body. Imagine it like this accumulated field of negative energy. It's the residue of all the emotional pain you've ever experienced that wasn't fully faced and processed at the time. And it gets lodged, he says, in both your mind and your physical body.
Everyone has one.
Everyone has one, though they vary in intensity. And it has two basic modes, dormant and active. Most of the time, it might just be sleeping, kind of lurking in the background.
But then it wakes up.
It wakes up, and the triggers can be incredibly subtle. A stray negative thought, a memory, a seemingly innocent comment from someone, something on the news, even the weather sometimes.
And what happens when it's active?
It takes over. It colors your thinking, drives your behavior. Suddenly you're filled with irritation, anger, deep sadness, anxiety, or maybe you feel this pull towards drama or conflict. It literally feeds on negativity.
So wait, it's not just that we feel pain, but this energy field actually wants the pain to continue. That sounds, well, crazy.
It is a form of insanity from a conscious perspective. And yes, that's the chilling part. The pain body needs to feed to survive. And what does it feed on? Pain. Tolle states it clearly. Pain can only feed on pain.
You can't feed on joy.
No, it can't feed on presence, awareness, peace. So when it gets activated, it manipulates your thinking and perception to create more pain, either in yourself or by provoking it in others so it can feed.
How does it do that?
Well, unconsciously, your thoughts, your words, your actions can become designed to keep the pain going. You might find yourself picking fights, dwelling on old grievances, seeking out situations that trigger negativity, feeling like a victim. Your conscious mind would deny it, of course, but the underlying drive is to generate more food for the pain body.
Like mentally replaying an argument over and over.
That's a perfect example.
Yeah.
You keep feeling the anger, the resentment, you might even start planning the next argument in your head. That's the pain body feeding and getting stronger, preparing for its next meal. It absolutely thrives in unconsciousness. The moment you become aware of it, truly aware, it starts to dissolve.
That's quite a mechanism.
And think about how this psychological time and mind identification play out collectively. Tolle points to huge historical examples. Think about ideologies like communism or extreme nationalism, or rigid religious doctrines that sacrifice the present for a promised future utopia.
The ends justify the means.
Exactly. And the mind justifies horrific means in the present: war, oppression, genocide, all for the sake of some imagined better world in the future. He mentions the staggering number, maybe 50 million people, killed to further the cause of communism in Russia and China, all to create a future heaven, which only created a present hell.
So it's a collective form of this mental illness.
When it becomes collective and goes unchecked by presence, yes, it becomes a dangerous mental illness, leading to unimaginable suffering.
Wow. And it's not just modern ideologies.
Not at all. He references Carl Jung telling a story about a conversation with a Native American chief. The chief observed white people, saw their tense faces, staring eyes, and a cruel demeanor.
What did he make of it?
He asked Jung, "They are always seeking something. What are they seeking? The whites always want something. They're always uneasy and restless. We don't know what they want. We think they're mad."
We think they're mad. That's telling.
It really is. That deep underlying unease, that constant seeking, the inability to just be content. That's the collective dysfunction. It comes from losing touch with our inner being, our essence, and being enslaved by psychological time. We're always going somewhere, doing something, trying to become someone, instead of just being.
That's incredibly powerful. And yeah, definitely a confronting mirror for, well, for many of us, individually and collectively. Okay, so if the root problem is this relentless mind chatter, this ego identification, this pain body feeding on negativity, what's the way out? How do we break free? So what does this all mean for us, practically speaking?
Well, the single most vital step, Tolle says again and again, is learning to disidentify from your mind.
Disidentify, meaning stop believing you are your thoughts.
Exactly. It's not about silencing the mind completely. That's almost impossible, and not really the point anyway. It's about recognizing the thoughts as thoughts and realizing that you are the awareness behind them.
Okay, so how? Is there a specific technique?
Yes, there's a truly immediate, practical action you can start right now. He calls it watching the thinker.
Watching the thinker.
Yeah.
Okay. But for so many of us, that voice feels like, well, like us. How do you even begin to separate from something that feels so fundamental? It sounds hard to just watch it. How do you actually do it?
It's actually simpler in practice than it sounds, though
Yeah.
it does take consistent practice. You simply start listening to that voice in your head, that nonstop commentary or dialogue, but you listen impartially.
Impartially, meaning?
Meaning, no judgment. Don't condemn what you hear. Because if you start judging your thoughts, oh, that's a bad thought, I shouldn't think that, then the same voice, the same egoic mind, has just slipped in the back door, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Now it's judging itself and you're still caught.
Ah, right. Still identified.
Exactly. So think of yourself as a neutral observer. Like you're sitting quietly by the side of a river, just watching the thoughts float by. You don't try to stop them, change them, push them away, or even figure them out. You just notice them, like watching clouds drift across the sky. You just observe their shape and movement without judgment.
Okay, so just listen. Neutrally. What happens when you do that? Is there like a A click, a moment you realize you're separate.
Yes, that's exactly it. As you practice this, even for just a few moments here and there, you'll quite quickly have what Tolle calls an I am realization. You become aware, okay, there's the voice, and here I am listening to it, watching it.
That feeling of being the watcher.
Exactly. And that sense of your own conscious presence that I am feeling, it's not another thought. It arises from beyond the mind. It's this quiet, still awareness that recognizes the thought without being the thought.
And what's the benefit of that? Does it stop the thoughts?
The benefit is immediate and really tangible. When you listen to a thought from that place of presence, without feeding it your belief and identification, the thought loses its power over you. It tends to subside, often quite quickly, because it's no longer being energized by you.
It runs out of fuel.
Precisely. And this creates what he calls a gap in the stream of mind, a moment of pure consciousness, no thought. And every time you create one of these gaps, the light of your own consciousness gets stronger. That inner space of stillness expands.
That sounds peaceful.
It is. And Tolle mentions, with practice, one day you might actually catch yourself smiling at the voice in your head, like you'd smile at a kid saying something silly.
Because you don't take it so seriously anymore.
Exactly. Your sense of self isn't dependent on its constant activity anymore. He uses this lovely analogy, be like a cat watching a mouse hole. Poised, alert, utterly still, just waiting patiently for the next thought to pop out. The longer you can stay in that state of alert stillness without thought, the deeper your presence becomes. You actually feel more alive, more vital in that space, free from the mind's noise.
Okay, so watching the thinker is key. And you mentioned this shift into presence is radical.
It really is, because the present moment, Tolle insists, holds the absolute key to liberation. You just cannot find freedom or peace or joy as long as you're completely identified with your mind, which, as we said, lives mostly in the past and future.
And this connects to his definition of enlightenment.
Yes, and it's such a helpful definition because it demystifies it. For many, enlightenment sounds like some far-off superhuman state, but Tolle defines it very simply as the end of suffering.
The end of suffering.
Just the end of suffering. Not gaining superpowers, not achieving some mythical state, just the absence of self-created suffering. What's left when suffering ends? Tolle points out the Buddha was famously silent on that, implying you have to discover it for yourself.
Why define it negatively as an absence?
Because it stops the mind from turning enlightenment into another concept, another goal to strive for in the future, which is what the mind loves to do. It keeps it grounded in something you can actually verify in your own direct experience. Am I suffering right now or not?
That makes it much more accessible, doesn't it? The end of suffering. Okay. So if the present moment is the key and watching the thinker helps us access it, what's another immediate practical thing we can do to really honor the present moment and start living this way?
Another really powerful immediate action is to consciously honor the present moment in whatever you're doing. Whatever this moment contains, whether it feels good or bad, easy or difficult, accept it. Accept it fully, as if you had chosen it.
As if you had chosen it, even the difficult stuff.
Even the difficult stuff. Work with the moment, not against it. Make it your friend, your ally, not your enemy. This simple act of acceptance, practiced moment to moment, Tolle says, will miraculously transform your whole life.
How does that translate into action?
It means giving your fullest attention to the doing itself, rather than being solely focused on the result or what comes next. So if you're washing dishes, you're fully there, feeling the water, seeing the bubbles, doing the washing. If you're writing an email, you give your full attention to that task.
Like karma yoga.
Exactly like karma yoga, consecrated action. The quality of your consciousness during the action is what matters most, not just the outcome. Bringing your full, undivided attention to this single moment, this single task.
Okay, that makes sense for everyday things. But what about when something genuinely painful or difficult happens? Accepting it feels hard, and Tolle claims we can't have problems in the know. That feels like a very bold statement. Can you unpack that one?
It is bold, isn't it? And it's incredibly transformative if you grasp it. He asks this really pointed question. What problems do you have right now, this very second?
And the answer is?
If your attention is truly, fully in the problem. Now the answer is, you don't have a problem. You might have a situation that needs to be dealt with or accepted, yes, but not a problem in the way the mind creates them.
What's the difference between a situation and a problem, then?
A problem, as Tolle defines it, arises when you mentally dwell on a situation without taking immediate action, and you unconsciously make that situation part of your sense of self, your identity. You resist it, you add a negative story to it.
Can you give an example?
Sure. Your car breaks down on the highway. That's a situation. It needs action, call for help, etc. It only becomes a problem when your mind jumps in with, oh no, this is a disaster. This always happens to me. My whole day is ruined. Why me? That mental overlay, that resistance to what is, that's the problem. That's what creates the suffering. The broken down car is just a fact in the present moment.
Got it. So the mental story creates the problem.
Precisely. Yeah. So the simple but, yeah, radical choice you can make again and again is this. No matter what happens, I will create no more pain for myself. I will create no more problems.
That's a powerful commitment.
It is. And it absolutely requires accessing the power of the relicant order. Now, because otherwise the mind just defaults back to its problem-making habits.
Yeah.
Think of your conscious presence like a flashlight.
Yeah.
Your life situation, all your past baggage, future worries, circumstances is like a thick fog.
Oh.
Your presence, your attention in the fog. Now, is the flashlight beam cutting through that fog, illuminating a clear open space right in front of you? That clear space is the Neil voice. Now, free from mental noise. When you operate from there, situations become manageable, challenges can be met, instead of turning into overwhelming problems.
Okay, so we've got disidentifying from the mind by watching the thinker and honoring the present by accepting what is and focusing on the doing. These are huge. How do we deepen this presence? What are some more, maybe concrete ways to stay anchored in the mind? Now, especially when life gets busy or stressful, you mentioned Tolle suggests being rooted within yourself means inhabiting your body. Let's unpack this. What does fully inhabiting your body actually mean?
Yeah, that's a really crucial next layer, because watching the thinker can still feel a bit head-focused, right? Inhabiting the body takes you deeper. It grounds your awareness in your physical form, using it as an anchor for presence.
So it's not just thinking about your body.
No, definitely not. It's not about being aware of your body from the outside, like looking at your hand or seeing your reflection. It's about feeling the body from within, feeling its inner energy field.
Inner energy field. What does that feel like?
It might feel like a subtle tingling, a sense of aliveness, a warmth, maybe a vibration, or just a general sense of presence within your hands, your feet, your chest, or eventually your whole body. This is what he calls the invisible inner body. It's your animating presence, the life within the form.
Okay. So how do you start feeling that? What if someone tries and just feels nothing much? Is there an immediate action for this?
Absolutely. The immediate action is simply to connect with the inner body. You can try it right now. Just close your eyes for a moment, maybe take a breath, and bring your attention inside your body. Can you feel any sensation within your hands? Maybe a slight tingling? Or in your feet?
Maybe a little bit.
Good. Don't strain or look for anything dramatic. Just gently rest your attention on whatever subtle sensation you can feel. Even a faint warmth or sense of density is enough to begin with. Focus on that feeling. Stay with it.
And what happens if you keep doing that?
With practice, you'll find that sensation spreads, becomes clearer. Your whole inner body can start to feel alive with this subtle energy. And the benefits are really profound. Your physical body actually starts to feel lighter, clearer, more vibrant. Tolle even suggests this practice slows down the aging process.
No.
Because aging is accelerated by accumulating psychological time, the burden of past regrets, future anxieties in our cells. When your baseline state shifts from being lost in thought to being present in your body, your physical form reflects that inner clarity and vitality.
And it helps in relationships too.
Massively. When you're rooted in your inner body, you bring a different quality of presence to interactions. It creates this clear space of no mind, as he calls it, between you and the other person. A sense of open, non-reactive presence where real connection can happen, free from the usual mental interference and projections. It generates a field of peace that others can often feel, even unconsciously.
Wow. So the body is a doorway.
A primary doorway. And this inner body, this energy field, or chi, is our direct link to what Tolle calls the unmanifested.
The unmanifested. That sounds mystical.
It can sound that way, but think of it simply as the formless dimension of pure consciousness, the timeless ground of being from which all forms, thoughts, bodies, trees, stars arise and eventually return. It's not a place out there. It's the silent living space behind and within everything. It's the source of that inner energy, the chi. It's the stillness that's somehow vibrant with life. Feeling the inner body is like tracing that river of life energy back to its source in stillness.
Okay. Are there other ways to access this stillness, these portals, as he calls them?
Yes, definitely. Beyond the inner body, there are other portals available every single moment, often right under our noses, completely unnoticed. One very powerful immediate action is listening to silence.
Listening to silence. How do you listen to some
What'd you say?
nothing?
You shift your attention. Instead of focusing only on the sounds, the traffic, the talking, the music, pay more attention to the silence out of which the sounds arise, and into which they eventually dissolve. Notice the gaps. When you hear a bird sing, also notice the silence surrounding the song. In a conversation, become aware of the brief pauses between words, the silent intervals.
So listen for the silence, not just through the noise.
Exactly. And the benefit is immediate. Paying attention to outer silence inevitably creates inner silence. Your mind becomes still. You simply cannot attend to silence without becoming still inside yourself. The mind, which thrives on noise and thought, just doesn't know what to do with silence. It's a direct portal. Silence without creates stillness within.
That's beautiful. Silence without, stillness within. And he also talks about awareness of space. That feels even more abstract. How do you become aware of empty space?
It might seem abstract, but again, it's remarkably simple and powerful in practice. Another immediate action is becoming aware of space. You gently withdraw your attention from the objects in space, the furniture, the walls, the computer screen, and become aware of the space itself, the empty space that allows all those objects to be there.
So paying attention to nothing.
In a way, yes. Paying attention to the nothing that holds everything. Feel the spaciousness of the room, rather than just seeing the things in it. Tolle explains that space and silence are really two aspects of the same thing. That formless stillness, the unmanifested. It's the infinitely creative womb of all existence.
Why don't most people notice this?
Because we're usually completely identified with physical forms, thought forms. We only pay attention to the things and the thoughts, and so we miss the background of silent spaciousness from which they arise. And living only in form keeps us in a state of underlying fear and feeling incomplete. Again, Tolle always stresses you don't need to understand this stuff mentally. It's not about concepts.
It's about experiencing it.
Exactly. The words are just signposts. They point towards an experience, a reality that needs to be felt, recognized deep within your own being. It's like remembering something fundamental, not learning something new.
Okay, so this presence, access through the inner body, silence, space, it's not just for quiet times. It fundamentally changes how we live, and especially how we relate to others. Let's talk about relationships, especially romantic love. Tully has some pretty radical takes on what often passes for love, doesn't he?
He really does. He points out that what we often call romantic love is frequently more like an addictive clinging, or a really strong ego need trying to find wholeness through another person.
How does that work?
We project our own sense of lack, our own unmet needs onto someone else. We mistake the initial excitement, the pleasure, the feeling of being completed by them for real lasting love or joy. And that's why so many relationships after that initial honeymoon phase start oscillating wildly.
Between love and hate.
Exactly. Intense love 1 minute, deep resentment, or even hate the next. Powerful attraction flipping into bitter attack. It's the ego seeking fulfillment through the other person, and when that person inevitably fails to live up to the impossible projection, all the underlying pain, fear, and frustration come rushing to the surface.
And that's where the pain body we talked about earlier really kicks in within relationships, when those projections fall apart and needs aren't met.
Precisely. When the initial romance fades, or when the relationship faces challenges, or when those often unspoken, unconscious needs aren't met, the pain body wakes up, often with a vengeance. And in relationships, it gets powerfully projected onto our partner. That's the source of so much conflict, blame, drama.
Couples reenacting old patterns.
Constantly, unconsciously feeding their own and each other's pain bodies through arguments, emotional trust manipulations, which leads Tolle to make that really radical statement. Relationships are not primarily here to make you happy.
What are they here for them?
They are here to make you conscious. They are incredibly potent spiritual practices because they bring your unconscious patterns, your egoic attachments, your pain body, right to the surface where you can see them. They offer an unparalleled opportunity for awakening if you use them that way.
Okay, so if the goal isn't happiness, but consciousness, what does an enlightened relationship look like? And crucially, what's an immediate action we can take to start moving towards that, especially when our partner's pain body, or our own, gets triggered? Because not reacting sounds incredibly difficult.
It is challenging, especially at first, no doubt, but it's also incredibly liberating when you start to practice it. The immediate action Tolle suggests for cultivating enlightened relationships is this: relinquish judgment of your partner's unconscious behavior.
Relinquish judgment. Does that mean just putting up with anything?
No, not at all. It doesn't mean condoning harmful behavior or being passive. It means recognizing their behavior when it's coming from unconsciousness or the pain body as an expression of that unconsciousness, not as who they truly are. You don't take it personally. You aim to be the knowing rather than being the reaction or the judge.
See the dysfunction without getting sucked in.
Exactly. You see the pain body at work, maybe in their anger or withdrawal, but you don't meet it with your own pain body, your own reactivity. Instead of fighting darkness with more darkness, you try to bring the light of your conscious presence to the situation. Instead of reacting to their delusion from your own delusion, you try to see through it.
How do you do that in the moment?
When your partner's pain body flares up, you make a conscious choice. Hold the space of intense presence for them. This means staying alert, grounded in your own inner body, non-reactive. Just be there as a field of calm awareness.
What does that do? It's incredibly powerful. This radical act of meeting unconsciousness with presence allows whatever was unconscious in them to be brought into the light of your awareness. And often, that alone starts to devolve its power. Tolle calls this the greatest catalyst for transformation in a relationship.
So you become an anchor.
You become an anchor of stillness instead of getting pulled into the drama. If you consistently meet their unconsciousness with your presence, Tolle says, your partner simply cannot stay with you and remain unconscious indefinitely. Your presence catalyzes their own awakening. It's not about fixing them. It's about being so present that their own unconscious patterns become obvious and eventually maybe even uncomfortable for them to maintain. It's an invitation into presence.
That's a completely different way of looking at relationship conflict, a catalyst for growth, not just pain. And it really highlights what you said earlier about the insanity of psychological time, that constant chasing of fulfillment somewhere else. It does. And that chasing, that insanity, it underpins so much of human striving and discontent, doesn't it? This constant drive to find fulfillment through external things, more money, more success, the perfect relationship, bigger thrills, even perfect health. We keep thinking the next thing will finally fill that inner hole.
But Tolle says,
the hole is still there. It is bottomless. We strive, we acquire, we achieve, but that inner sense of lack, of not enough yet, often persists. Because the hole isn't really about external circumstances. It's the felt absence of presence, the absence of connection with being. We're always waiting for something else to make us feel whole.
always waiting. Yeah, that really resonates. Most of us spend so much time waiting, don't we? Waiting for the weekend, waiting for vacation, waiting for retirement, waiting for the right time to start living. So what's the immediate action for that pervasive habit?
It's a wonderfully liberating one. Give up waiting as a state of mind. Just notice when you slip into that mental state of waiting for something to happen, waiting for someone to arrive, waiting for circumstances to change so you can finally be happy or fulfilled. And when you catch yourself, snap out of it. Consciously bring your attention back to the present moment. Right here, right now, just be and enjoy being. Tolle has this great line, if you're truly present, you're never really waiting for anything because the future loses its grip as the sole source of your potential happiness. So next time someone says, sorry to keep you waiting, you could genuinely reply, that's okay, I wasn't waiting. I was just standing here enjoying myself, enjoy in myself.
That's brilliant. Giving up waiting is a state of mind. Powerful.
It really is. Because waiting implies the present isn't good enough, that your fulfillment lies somewhere else, sometime else. Giving it up is a radical act of embracing the now as complete in itself.
And this leads us towards the idea of surrender, which sounds, well, passive.
But that's the common misunderstanding. Surrender, in Tolle's context, is often mistaken for weakness, resignation, just giving up.
Yeah.
But he asserts it's precisely the opposite. It's the greatest strength.
How so?
Because only a surrendered person has true spiritual power. They're no longer in conflict with life itself, no longer constantly resisting what is. To practice surrender, the immediate action is practice surrender in the now, which means accept what is in this tiny, ever-present segment called the now.
Except at how?
With no inner resistance. No judgment about it. This shouldn't be happening.
Yeah.
No emotional negativity towards it. It's a profound inner yes to the reality of this moment, however it appears.
Okay, but what about action? You remember him being stuck in mud earlier? You wouldn't just say yes to the mud and stay there, would you?
Exactly right. Surrender is not passivity. If action is possible and needed, you take what Tolle calls positive action. But it arises from that state of inner acceptance. So you're stuck in the mud. First step, accept the isness of the situation. Okay, I am in mud right now. No inner drama, no why me, no resistance, just acceptance of the fact.
And then?
Then, from that place of inner calm and clarity, you take intelligent, effective action to get out of the mud. Action born from surrender from presence is far more powerful and less likely to create further problems than action born from resistance, anger, or panic.
And if no action is possible, like dealing with a loss or chronic illness,
Then you use the situation to go deeper into surrender, deeper into just being. You accept the unchangeable reality of the situation internally. This acceptance allows inner factors, deep-seated fear, guilt, psychological resistance patterns to dissolve because they can't survive in the face of that inner yes to what is. They need resistance to thrive.
what are the benefits of practicing surrender like this?
They're immense. The quality of your consciousness shifts dramatically. The quality of your actions improves immeasurably. Suffering itself, instead of just being endured or creating more pain, actually becomes fuel for consciousness. It's like spiritual alchemy, transforming the lead of suffering into the gold of presence. You stop creating drama. You stop participating in it because drama absolutely requires resistance and unconscious identification. You become a force for peace, starting within yourself.
That's a completely different way to view challenges and suffering. Alchemy. Okay. And this brings us to a final, really big question. Our life's purpose. We're often conditioned to think purpose is all about achieving big things out there, right? How does Tolle's teaching connect presence to purpose?
He makes a really useful distinction between two kinds of purpose in your life's journey:
Yeah.
an outer purpose and an inner purpose.
Outer and inner.
Your outer purpose relates to goals, achievements, destinations in the world in time. Getting a degree, building a career, raising a family, creating something, solving a problem. That's all the what and where in the future.
Okay, that makes sense. What's the inner purpose?
Your inner purpose has absolutely nothing to do with what you are doing or where you are going. It has everything to do with how you are doing it. It's about the quality of your consciousness in this very moment. Your outer journey might involve a million steps leading to a destination, but your inner journey only ever has one step. The step you're taking right now. That's the only one that's real. That's the only place your inner purpose can be fulfilled.
So if you're totally focused on the future goal, you miss the inner purpose.
You miss the whole point of the journey, essentially. You miss life itself, which is always now. So the immediate action related to purpose, which brings the inner and outer into alignment, is simply focus on the how.
Focus on the how.
Give your fullest, most undivided attention to how you are doing whatever you are doing right now. Focus on the quality you bring to the single step you're taking at this moment. Are you present? Are you accepting? Are you acting with awareness? Don't let your mind be constantly obsessed with the future goal, the result.
So if you're building a business,
Focus on the quality of this phone call right now, the integrity of this email you're writing, the presence you bring to this meeting. Don't let your mind constantly leap ahead to the projected profits or the final success. Tolle assures us the fruit will come of its own accord. When the how, the quality of your consciousness in the present action, is right, the what, the outcome, tends to take care of itself, often in unexpected and better ways.
because your true self isn't defined by the future outcome.
Exactly. Your true self, your being, is already complete. It's already whole right now. Your sense of worth comes from that connection with being, with presence, not from anything in your personal past history or any future achievements. You are already complete now.
Wow. So what does this all mean for us wrapping this up, this deep dive into the power of now? It really does show a profound path, doesn't it? It's about moving beyond that tyranny of the mind, dissolving that heavy pain body that keeps us stuck in the past, ending the dramas we create for ourselves.
And finding that genuine peace, that real joy, that sense of purpose right here, right now.
Exactly. And the real beauty of it, I think, is how accessible it is. The immediate, powerful actions we can actually take, starting literally today.
No special equipment needed.
Right. Remember those key practices we talked about? Actively watching the thinker to start separating yourself from the mental noise, really inhabiting your inner body to get grounded in the present moment's energy, tuning into the silence beneath the sounds, the space around the objects, using them as portals.
And that crucial practice of surrender in the now, that inner yes to whatever is,
Yeah.
accepting it without resistance, and then taking positive action from that place of peace.
Yeah. These aren't some huge mystical feats, are they? You don't need to, like, climb the north face of the Eiger or go live in a cave.
Not at all.
You can enter that state even for moments right now, today, right where you are, doing whatever you're doing. And, this really changes how we think about prosperity too, doesn't it?
Absolutely. True prosperity isn't about getting more stuff in the future.
It's about gratitude for right now.
It's the deep, abiding gratitude for the present moment, for the fullness of life that is already here now. When you honor and acknowledge and fully accept your present reality, Who you are, where you are, what you have, what you're doing right now, when you're grateful for what is. That deep contentment is true prosperity. It's not something you need to chase. It's available right now through presence and acceptance. It's already yours. And maybe just to leave you with something to reflect on, this whole journey of awakening that Tolle maps out, the one that starts inside each of us. It's not just a personal project. It has potentially cosmic significance.
What do you mean?
Well, think about those ancient prophecies or ideas about the end of the world or a new heaven and a new earth. We often imagine them as some future apocalypse or external event. But Tolle suggests maybe they point to something else, the awakening of consciousness itself, from the dream of being identified solely with form, with thoughts, emotions, things.
So the transformation is internal.
It begins internally. This profound shift, this new heaven and new earth, starts within you, within each individual who awakens to presence. Therefore, your primary task isn't necessarily trying to fix the entire world out there, seeking salvation by creating a better external world through egoic effort. The primary task is to awaken out of identification with form, with your mind, your ego, your pain body.
And that interchange affects the outer world.
Inevitably, if enough individuals make this inner shift, the collective human world, which is currently largely a reflection of the fearful, conflicted, egoic mind, will naturally begin to transform. It's about a fundamental shift in planetary consciousness, starting one person at a time.
Wow.
So here's a final provocative thought to maybe carry with you. You are here to enable the divine purpose of the universe to unfold. That is how important you are.
That's quite a statement.
Think about it. Your conscious presence right here, right now, isn't just about finding your own peace, so that's wonderful. Your inner transformation, your choice for presence over mind identification, contributes directly, profoundly, to this larger shift in consciousness for the planet. What incredible significance lies in that simple yet radical act of just being present.